All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. If you need a roof, make sure you call Ireland Contracting. Also, give us a call right now on the Borders to Borders hotline, 412-575-2600. We have a couple lines open right now. If you look at the standings in the NHL, I was just looking at it. The Flyers in overtime in Phoenix, tied at 3. But, you know, the Metro and the East, it's all really close. The Capitals are only 5 points ahead of the Penguins. New Jersey 2 points back of the Penguins in third place in the Metro. Philadelphia has 61 points. So with the win, they potentially would be in third place. They would jump ahead of New Jersey. But you got Carolina, Columbus, the Islanders, all within 1 or 2 points. So there's going to be right now Columbus and the Islanders are on the outside looking in, 1 point out of a playoff spot. The Rangers theoretically still win it. They're only 4 points out, but it seems like they've kind of given up. They sent out a tweet with a statement saying that they're going to go in the direction of trying to retool, like the Pirates. I like that word, retooling. Not rebuilding, it's retooling. All right, let's go out to the phone lines. We got Jerry in Hempfield. How you doing, Jerry?
Hey, I'm going to say something to you, Rich, and then you can comment after what I say.
Okay.
Le'Veon Bell. People ought to take their heads out of the sand. This guy is the average running back. And
well, hold up, Jerry. I don't think he's an average running back, but I'll let you finish.
Let me explain now, okay? You can't compare him to like a Marcus Allen or Barry Sanders or Eric Dickerson. Those are running backs. This guy got 3 runs of 20 yards the most.
Okay.
So he's not really a great running back. And if you cut him and you could take that $14 million and put it on the defense, you'll have one of the best defenses in the league. I think the Steelers will dominate for a while. You don't need this guy. You can find a running back. I wouldn't want him. So
don't hang up yet, Jerry, but I want to discuss this with you. I don't agree with you by saying he's an average running back. I think he's an elite running back. He touches the ball, 40 times a game, and what he's able to do. Now, I do think the Steelers can replace that position, and I don't think they need to overspend for that position. Look at what New England has done. Over the years. I agree with you not needing Le'Veon Bell, and I would not franchise him. I wouldn't sign him to a long-term deal. I would go draft a guy maybe in the second round or maybe bring in a free agent and maybe use 2 running backs, that person and Connor. Save that money, like you said, and put it towards the defense, which they're going to need because they need to replace Ryan Shazier. They're going to need a safety because I doubt they're going to bring back Mike Mitchell. Would you at that price tag? Willie Gay's not going to probably come back. These are guys where they can save some money. So I agree with you on the Le'Veon Bell. They wouldn't get anything for him if they don't franchise him. They would just have to let him walk. I think they would get a compensatory third-round pick. Are you willing to take that gamble?
Yes, I would, because if he had a little bit of moves, like the great running backs in the past, it's different. But he's not that good compared to all the running backs.
I think he got some moves. I don't think he's worth $14 million. That's not where that running back market is. That's where
the money that they save, they could really put their defense up. And look at this Shaquille Barkley from Penn State. Now there's going to be a running back who can break tackles.
Yeah, okay. But they're not going to get him. I mean, he's going to go in the top 5 picks. So,
but I would just take my chances and save the money, and I'd find somebody to help.
Yeah, I mean, $60 million on a long-term deal. I don't know if that's worth it when they can put that money somewhere else. But here's the only reason I think you should franchise this guy, because they have a short window here. If Ben's playing 3 years, so you try to franchise him this year, you go for the Super Bowl, and if you don't get there, then maybe you try to figure out. But you got a 3 or 4 year window here with Ben, I think. So you got to try to give him as many weapons as you can, but you need to improve that defense. There's no question about that.
But not for that much.
Yeah, not for that much money. There's no doubt about that. Hey, I appreciate the call. All right, let's go out to Tony in the Hill District. How you doing, Tony?
How you doing, Rich?
Good. Thanks for calling.
I want to ask you about this. Okay, the same play that the Eagles had in the Super Bowl, that's the same play that the Steelers had that they called, and that's one of the same plays that Dez Bryant had.
You're talking about the catch, no catch, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the same play that Dez.
I mean, it happened a bunch of times this year.
Huh?
Happened a bunch of times this year, Tony.
Don't you think that they should do something about that rule, because that's going to cause a lot of conflict between you know, the refs and the, you know, the league. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The coaches and stuff.
Well, they're bringing Al Riveron back. That's the Riveron, however you say his name. He's the guy that, you know, he was the guy that just would pick apart these and say it's a catch, it's not a catch, the ball moved, this and that. I think they need to do something. And Art Rooney told Bob Pompiani this week that they're going to do something about that. They need to figure out what a catch is and what a catch isn't, because there's just so many ways you can interpret it. And I just feel like it's a big story in the NFL, and it shouldn't be. You could see that Jesse James caught the ball, crossed the line. Maybe he didn't make a football move. What is a football move? Did he take 3 steps, 2 steps? Whatever it is, let the referee do it. What I don't like, and here, I think this would change a lot of things, Tony. I think the person... I don't think they should go to New York for overturning calls. I think it should be handled on site, because those referees and those officials would be reluctant to overturn something that they called on the field. They would overturn it if they had to, but a call that could go both ways, they're going to let it stand because they made the call and they don't want to be wrong. Where someone in New York doesn't care, they just want to interpret it the way they think it should be interpreted. So the NHL does that with Toronto. Now the NFL does that. I think they need to go back with reviewing it on site. That would be my suggestion. But they also need to fix the catch of what is a catch and what isn't a catch. We don't know. They need to do a better job of figuring that out. If you have it for a second, if a football move could be just turning, not taking 2 steps. I don't like what they've done. There's a lot of teams that got screwed because of it this year. The Steelers were one of them. I mean, think if they didn't overturn that. I hate to always look back, but if they didn't overturn that Jesse James no catch, the Steelers would have had home field advantage. They wouldn't have had to play Jacksonville. They would have played Tennessee. Maybe things are different. New England comes here. Maybe Jacksonville beats New England and Jacksonville comes here and then potentially could beat the Steelers. But you would think the Steelers would be in the AFC Championship game and would have a better route to the Super Bowl if they had home field advantage. That's what I think. That one call, and he overturned it. They should have went with the call on the field. They got to do something, Tony. I appreciate the call. Let's go out to another Tony. Tony out in North Cambria. How you doing, Tony?
Good, buddy. Hey, thanks for taking my call. My thing is, I'm a big Steelers fan all my life. I've seen all the Super Bowls. Since we can't blame the coaches for this failure, and what I mean by that, all the talent, there's no excuse.
Yeah.
I'm a big Roethlisberger fan. He looked bad in the Pro Bowl. I think it's time. Hopefully he resigns this year. We need to move on. Maybe grab a Foles out there while we have the hot players.
Yeah,
thank you.
I appreciate it, Tony, but he's not going to retire this year. He said he wasn't going to, and I think they're probably going to extend him somehow. They're going to renegotiate something. He has 2 years left on his deal. He wants to play 3 years, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's negotiating a long-term deal right now, maybe for 2-3 more years, in almost to 40 years old. He's a guy. This is how the Steelers can win with this guy. And he might not be the best quarterback out there. And, yeah, he does make mistakes. And I don't think he's over the hill at all. I think he gives them the best chance of winning. I would much rather have. I know Foles won a Super Bowl, but I still would rather have Ben Roethlisberger than a Nick Foles. So they have a 3-year window here. That's what I'm saying right now. They got a 3-year window, so they got to put the best team on the field for the next 3 years. If you got to mortgage a future, whatever you got to do, you got to go for it these next 3 years. That's my philosophy. All right, we're going to take a break. Back with more phone calls, some tweets coming up next. Stay right there.